Hello, everyone. Okay, nice and awake. Are you guys enjoying the Selenium conference? Yes, yeah. So I'm Christina. Most of you might have seen me in the past as well. It's lovely to be back again on the Selenium conference stage in London. You can follow me on Twitter, and I'm not going to go ahead with lots of introduction about myself, because Lydia's done her job. And I'm going to tell you a story. So once upon a time, when I was working in a workplace before where I work now, we were in this project. And the project was for a client who takes security very seriously. But we were too busy. We were too busy with the functional testing. We were too busy with fixing the functional bugs. And nobody was worried about security. Yes, there was another vendor who was going to do pen testing right at the end, but nobody seemed to worry about it. One of our senior colleagues even delivered those wheels or said, let's get our wheels sharpened with security testing, but nobody seemed to listen to it. And then this happened. Disaster strike at the wrong time, and then he was like, didn't I tell you? Well, not in this evil manner, but yes. And so that's the thing. So we were running functional testing. We could have done teeny-weeny security tests at the early stage. I mean, it was embarrassing to find very obvious security issues. So today, SpongeBob here has a solution for us. So he's telling you that you can use your existing automation tests and execute security testing. That sounds great, SpongeBob. Well, do you guys write automation packs for your tests? Just, functional automation? Wow. So, that's why we are here, right? So today we are going to talk about taking baby steps towards security testing. Don't let those vulnerabilities choke your application. Don't. So this is the agenda. I'm just going to give you a brief introduction on security testing, and then adding security testing as part of your software development cycle. Then how can we embed? That's going to be the main topic. How can we embed security testing part and parcel of the quality engineering process? This would also comprise of demos with open source applications or tools, which you can go and start using. And I'm sure most of you are interested in starting your baby steps in security testing, so this would be helpful for you guys. So security testing is basically, most of us know, so we're trying to test or mimic the basic malicious attacks to see if the system is vulnerable, or any unforeseen attacks can occur. So we are basically pretending to be a hacker and trying to hack the system before the system goes live and actually faces the real hacker. So these are some of the top 10 vulnerabilities provided by OWASP, or the Open Web Application Software Project. So you can actually follow these, and most of this we're already covering in our functional testing. Well, you would wonder, isn't security testing non-functional? Well, there's some part of the functional testing that you would be doing which is inclined to security. So just have a look at these when you get back, and you would actually identify that there are test cases that you already, which is part of your regression pack, which incorporates these, or basically tries to figure out if these vulnerabilities exist. So why does security testing need to be part of the continuous integration and continuous deployment? Well, if you're working for a project and the client or the customer is very keen on security, you don't want them to get upset by getting the application hacked or losing some of their data, right? So that's one thing. And if it's continuously tested, that means it's somewhat secure from the real hacker out there. And moreover, the basic issues will be spotted at an early stage and not when the system or the application is ready to go live, and where you'll have to think about changing the infrastructure and all these things from the very beginning. That's just going to be painful. And the other thing is, if you are worried about things like, if you're basically using a payment gateway, and if you have a certain amount of downtime, right? Like even 5 minutes can impact your revenue massively. So like for example, for an e-commerce site, just imagine the attack happens on like Cyber Monday or something like that. There you go. So it's going to be massive impact in terms of revenue as well. And if you're connected to another third-party application and there's some sort of regulatories that we need to follow, and there, if things go bad, there you go, you might have to face certain fines as well. And moreover, if things go, if there's downtime and the application fails, then you will have to recover. So you wouldn't have that expense if you've done, especially for the obvious defects, if you found them at a very early stage. So we at Cisco Labs, we believe in something called full stack quality engineering. So we make sure that most of our quality engineers are jack of all trades. That they can do security, performance, etc. And we've given security a serious, we've made security part and parcel of every step that we take, from requirement gathering, analysis, and so on. And static code analysis has been made compulsory for the developers. But then sometimes, yes, they don't tend to do it, and that's where the quality engineers come into place. See, we make sure that the static code analysis is run, and we compare it with the dynamic application security as well, and then we prioritize the security defects in such a manner. So we follow the OWASP standards. So we've been talking about all this, but how can we implement this, right? This is where we need to start thinking about a change. If we have continuous testing, can't we just have security also part of it? And can't we identify the obvious defects at an early stage? So baby step 1. The solution for this is the security experts and quality engineers need to work hand in hand. The quality engineers would be enlightened by the security experts, and literally they would be working as, or they'll be best friends forever. So they'll be working together, and we will get better results by better test cases. So why did we select quality engineers? So basically, when we think about quality engineers and security testers, or basically what they're trying to do is break the system before it goes live, so that they have found the defects at an early stage, and obviously those defects are fixed. So this is the basic idea. So literally, these BFFs speak the same language. So that's why we've thought of having the security testing part and parcel of the quality engineering process. Well, there is other reasons where the quality engineers do continuous testing on features. They think out of the box. So there is obviously a knowledge gap in terms of security testing, and that's why we have the security experts working hand in hand with the quality engineers. And then the quality engineers start thinking out of the box. Right? And moreover, the application knowledge, the quality engineers are pretty thorough with the application knowledge more than the others. So it's easy for them to actually see the nook and corner of every of the application and giving more test coverage. And then the test methodology. It's already in place. They already have the process all set there. So the only thing you need to do is get the security experts to work with the quality engineers and just shed some light and see how you can improve in terms of security testing. So initially, quality engineers and security experts were living in two different areas. They didn't know each other. There wasn't any sort of impact with quality engineering and security. But here, now we've started covering some part of the security testing in the the testing life cycle. So every time you run the tests, you would be testing some part of the security tests. So which means you will be spotting very obvious issues at a very early stage. Step 2, tests to start with. So which type of tests we should start with? What is the change of the process? So initially, we've changed the process slightly. From the very beginning, we had the security expert working in the project. I know it's very scarce to find security projects if you have like multiple experts for multiple projects, but when they have help from the quality engineers and they can train them, it's pretty helpful when you can have their input and start working on the project. Right? And then you have the entire team working or discussing about the business logic, the assets, the architecture. So everyone's aware what they're looking for and where they're looking for. And reviewing the test cases. So there are test cases that the quality engineers already are writing. For example, like one of those questions that most of the quality engineers ask is like, what is the privileges, the user privileges, the access level, blah, blah, blah. These are the usual questions I'm sure most of the quality engineers ask. There you go. That's some part of security testing as well. So we can review these test cases, and the quality engineers work with the developers and the security experts, their BFFs. And they will be helping them to enhance the test cases, adding value to them. And also, they will be creating new test cases and explaining them to the quality engineers as well. And then the defects will be created. Usually, when the automated scripts are running, the defects are created, and then those defects are reviewed by the rest of the team. So these are some of the tests that you can start with initially, like authentication, authorization. I'm sure this is already covered in your regression pack, but you can enhance them, increase the coverage of it, and obviously add more value to your testing pack. Maybe you can separate your regression pack and the security pack separately, group the very important ones that are very focused on security, and test them separately as well, or run the automated test. You can also, obviously, the sensitive data is something that we also look for in terms of security and functional testing as well. So these are certain things that you can start with and get the help of your security experts and enhance those test cases. So this is something, a new form of test case that was recommended by OWASP. And they've mentioned that you need to mention the vulnerability description. Because most of the time, as I said, we already have certain regression pack, some test cases in the regression pack itself. But the quality engineers don't really know what they're looking for sometimes. So here is where the security expert comes and sheds his little light and says, this is the vulnerability you're looking for. These are the recommendations. In case you see something like this, try this way, and so on. So that's where we can enhance the test cases or add more steps and so on. It can depend on the scenario you're looking for. Step 3, spot the right tools for your security tests. So today, I'm going to talk about an open source tool. We do use some paid tools as well. But for those who are starting, initially you're getting your stepping stones into security testing, this particular tool is quite helpful. So Z-Attack Proxy. So I'm going to demonstrate how we can use this and run some tests with our automated scripts, existing automated scripts. So basically, just to give you a brief introduction, it's a web app pen test tool. It's the OWASP flagship project, and it's very good for beginners. Even though it's open source, it is quite sophisticated, and it has quite a lot of features, and it's a very good tool to start with. So these are some of the features you can look for. I mean, they have active scanner, passive scanner. Spider is something like you crawl through the system, so you give the entry points, and you basically Zap basically crawls through the system to find if there's any vulnerable entry points into the application. They have pretty good reporting, and you can compare sessions as well. So ideally, what happens is Zap is a proxy, so your browser is going to access the web server using the proxy, and obviously the vulnerabilities or defects are going to be registered on Zap, and you'll be able to view them. Okay, so we've looked at all this. How do we incorporate this with our automation pack? So this is what we're going to do. So we're going to use the existing automation test cases, or those enhanced test cases that were given, or basically discussed with the test cases that were discussed with the security expert. And these specific test cases will be automated, and then when we do the automation, the scan will also be running. So the idea is the automated Zap test, right? So we are going to, basic idea is, Selenium is going to use the driver and run the tests. That's what it usually does. So basically, we're going to have Zap intervene in between and record the vulnerabilities, or find out if there's any issues in your application. So let's have a quick demonstration. So I'm having a recorded one because I don't want to see any surprises. So this is Zap 2.80. So that's the latest version. And I've gone into options, and I'm setting my proxy host and port. I'm disabling the API key because I'm not going to use the API key for this particular test. If it's required, you can use it. You can also use the Zap Docker image, but I'm just running this on the local. So in my Maven project, I've added the dependencies for the Zap API as well. And this is my code, so it's a very basic code, and I'm going to run it on Bodget Store, which is, again, an OWASP application. So I've got the Docker image of that. You can actually use it. It's, again, open source. It's a highly vulnerable web application. And you can obviously try to understand what security issues you're looking for, try to manually reproduce them as well, and have a look at, or try to understand security issues as well. So I'm going to set the proxy, which I mentioned in my Zap application. And as you can see, the Zap proxy scanner, I need to mention the host and the port. And if there is an API key, I need to mention that as well. Going down, as you can see, I'm going to do the Spider scan, and it's going to use the Chrome WebDriver. And yes, we're going to do Spider with Zap. So this is how I am going to check if the test has passed or failed, for you guys to just view it. So I'm going to specify the alerts, and if the alerts that I give is 0, then the test will pass. If not, the test is going to fail. right? I mean, you can obviously tweak this a bit. I've only gone for high defects. If you want, I mean, high issues. If you want, you can specify medium. You can change the logic accordingly. You can play with the ZAP code that's available. So we're going to run 2 basic tests, and this is going to be part of your tests, usual tests as well, if you are going to run a similar test where you're going to see test after login and so on. So the same thing, I'm going to check with alerts. And you can see that I have scan with ZAP. And this is very important. So enable ZAP policies. So these are the basic scan IDs that will be obtained. Based on this, we'll know which issue is available or is in your system. So this is basically in ZAP API scan, or basically in the ZAP proxy page. So you can use this. I've only put a few scan IDs here, but you can put all the scan IDs that you are looking for and run your tests. So now, you can run the tests as well. And as I told you, I'm going to use budget store. I'm using the Docker image. It's a highly vulnerable application. And I mean, I didn't prefer running the jar in my machine. So what I did is I got the Docker image. So you can actually use various other tools, which I will talk to you about later. So we've started the test now. And yes, that's the budget store. It's a pretty ugly application, but highly vulnerable. So you can learn quite a lot of issues here. So the test is running. It's checking all the important points, like the login page. It also checks for, so here it just tried to enter a string value into where it should be entering an integer. And you can see that the code's already there. I mean, it's given you a patch of the code, which is not acceptable. So the new version of budget store, basically, every time the issues are found by ZAP, it gives you notifications, as you can see on the side, saying that it found this issue as well. So even when you're manually executing ZAP, you would be able to find these issues, and it'll be helpful for you as well. So the next test has started. So as you can see, this was a highly vulnerable application. So therefore, the previous test has failed because we found some alerts. So same thing, this time it's registering, but not logging in. So again, these are things where you need to, this coverage would actually give you an idea whether you have access to things that you're not supposed to be having access to, and so on. These are already test cases that we already incorporate in our regression pack. But here, ZAP will tell us what sort of security issues we're looking at. So yes, especially entry points like search text boxes and text boxes, URLs, these are things that you need to have most in coverage because, as you know, these things can give, basically this text box or something can give you details that you're not supposed to be having access to. So we've completed the advanced search as well. And now, as you can see, the scan is going on from ZAP end. So ZAP has got the coverage, and you can see that the notifications are appearing on the budget store, which will not happen in another application. But since this is an application that OWASP has created for you to learn security testing, we have that privilege as well. So as you can see, there were about 3 alerts found, which are the high alerts, which is cross-site scripting and SQL injection in the advanced search and register section. So it was giving probably these injections, if you manually do them, you would probably get some details that you're not supposed to be getting. So in the same manner, for the previous test as well, we can see that there are about 5 issues, and most of them are SQL injections. So as you can see, these are tests that you already probably are running in your respective, very basic stuff, right? So if you have the coverage, why not just run the tests, right? Why not have it with security, the scanner, and basically have a higher coverage, have test cases that are looking at the right spot, have more enhanced test cases with the help of the security expert, and just get these defects spotted. So the next thing, we've got the automated test working with your security scan. Now, why don't we just add it to our CI/CD in terms of tests? So we're going to look at Jenkins plugin again, open source. So this will be helpful for you if you're going to start, you can install Jenkins in your local and just try how this is working. There are various other tools as well. There are a couple of paid tools which work in the same manner. But for those who are beginners and starting with this, again, it's freely available for you to start with. So there's a plugin, and basically Jenkins plugin is quite sophisticated. So you can load a session. I'll show it to you in the demonstration. What you can do is basically record the Zap activities that you want to do, and then keep that session in your workspace, and then load it whenever it's necessary. Right? So, or basically when running the Jenkins build. Or you can persist the session. If you're using Selenium scripts, then just go ahead and persist the session, because Selenium is going to give the coverage for you. Then you can also define the URLs you want to include, exclude, etc. And currently, the Jenkins plugin has Spider Scan, Active Scanner, and also the Ajax Spider. You can obviously have this part of your pre-build, like saying, if I see this many security issues, then, or like high issues, then don't deploy. Or you can have it or part of your Selenium build where there'll be a higher coverage with the sophisticated test pack they're looking for, and then again say, in case there's more issues spotted, then don't deploy. And it also has lovely reports. So this is the basic idea. So this image I actually stole from OWASP, from their GitHub itself. So you can find this in their GitHub as well. So basically, Jenkins triggers the test. If you're just running it with the Jenkins plugin alone, you can do that as well. But I highly suggest that we do the Selenium pack with the Jenkins plugin as well. So that's the whole idea. We've enhanced the test cases, we've given more coverage, and then we also have it part of our continuous integration. So you can use this plugin, and there's good reporting, so I'll show that to you as well. And you can also track the issues as well. So let's have a look at that demonstration. Oops. Okay, so this is my Jenkins, and it's in my local. So I'm just going to give you like the stepping stones for initially when you're going to do it by yourself and trying it. So I'm going to go into my Manage plugin, and I am going to install the plugin. So you'll have to search for Zap in the available plugins, but I've already got it installed. So make sure that there are two plugins, but the one that is compatible with 2.6 onwards is the official Zap plugin. And I'm also adding the HTML publisher because I want to show you the lovely reports that Zap provides. So you can see that I went into the global variables, and I am going to set the Zap home. So make sure that, if you're using Docker, then you don't have to actually go through this struggle, because if you're using Windows and so on, then obviously finding the home is in a different manner. So you can use the Docker image and do it, but if you're going to use your local, then you will have to set the home, etc. And you will now start a new item. So I'm going to just create a freestyle project. And we shall call it Zap Demo. And I am going to save it and run it. Why am I running it without doing anything? Because I want to create a workspace so that I can keep that script in the workspace section and make sure that I can load that. So I'm just going to show that to you as well, in case you're curious on how load session works. So this is some tests that I've already done. So as you can see, this build, the job that I've run. So basically, I have to configure the same things, the host, the override host, and port as well. And I should make sure that Zap is running. But obviously, if you have the Docker images, you'll be able to easily start and stop them as well. But for those who are going to initially try it with your local machine, yes, you will have to have it running. So make sure that the options are mentioned correctly as well. And let's quickly go into Jenkins. And we can mention Zap Home, the Zap Home directory, and you can load a session. So this is what I was talking about. The already recorded Zap sessions, you can have that running instead of mentioning the necessary entry points, etc. But I'm going to persist the session. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a spider. So I'm going to say include in context this, and exclude the logout. And yes, I'm going to do the active scan and the spider as well. So I'm just giving the build ID, so we have unique sessions created for every test that we run. And also we will be looking at unique reports as well. Again, for you guys to have a look at how the reports look like. So yes, we've got the HTML publisher as well. So I'm going to run the test. So this is not the Selenium test, but you can have this part of that. I strongly suggest you should, but here I'm just demonstrating on how the Jenkins plugin looks like, because this is going to be very quick. But if you have the Selenium scripts running and this plugin attached to that, you would be able to have a higher coverage, and you will be able to spot more defects as well. So you're running the Selenium scripts anyways, and you've enhanced those test cases to make sure that they find the exact issues. And here you go, you would be able to find issues as well. So if you have Jira integrated, and if you're using Jira, then you can directly create the issues as well. So let's have a look at the report now. So so you can see one of the reports. So you can see that there were 1 medium and 2 low defects. So as you know, that if we had done the Selenium scripts, we would have found more issues. So it was just like one quick run with Spider. So therefore, it has only found 3 issues. So as I mentioned, higher the coverage, you'll spot more issues if there are any. So you can see the XML report, and this is the logs as well. So now we've had a look at how we can incorporate it with the existing test pack, how can we start working with security testing and so on. But there's, again, still a bit of knowledge gap. And there's some tools that are available that you can use. There's WebGoat, there's OWASP, Juice Shop, which is actually it's a tool that is functionally very sound, but security, highly vulnerable. So you can use these. There are Docker images for all of these, as well as OWASP. I got for iOS-related security issues, and you can also use Gotroid if you want to understand. So these are things like you can you can execute security issues. It'll tell you what you're looking at and what are the issues as well. So hope this was helpful for you, and you can take it back to where you are and start taking your baby steps towards security testing with the existing pack. So these are some of the key takeaways. You'll be able to find the security issues at an early stage, at least the very, very obvious ones. So we start with the obvious ones, and then we can have a security testing coverage for every release, and there's a high visibility of the security defects as well. So these are the sources that I've used. So you can look at them as well, and you can start working on security testing with your existing tests that are available. So hope this was helpful for you guys, and don't let those nasty bugs choke your application. Just zap, zap, zap. You can use any tool you want, but just get rid of them at an early stage. Thank you.